my dudes, how you doing? I hope you're having a goddamn great day. Now, off the bat, I would just like to say, I think I have cooked with this video, with these set of tactics. I think it effectively replicates the philosophy of what Pirlo is looking to implement, as well as how they look to try and set out in real life. You guys can let me know down below, but if you didn't know, today we will be talking about Andrea Pirlo and, of course, Sampdoria and how they look to set out in real life, but look to try and replicate and recreate those tactics in your game, FC24. Of course, I do have the 4-3-2-1 system, as well as the current system that they are using in the 3-5-2. Now, I will say this, if you guys can hit the like button, and if we can get 30 likes on this video, obviously we will be discussing the 4-3-2-1 system. I will go ahead and release this video on Sunday, of course. An own individualized back three system that Andrea Pirlo and Sampdoria look to try and play with on a regular basis. So again, 30 likes and I will release this video. But anyways, back to the 4-3-2-1. Now, like I say, I think I've cooked. I love these instructions. I love these tactics. And I love the way that it translates into FC24. So taking a look at the formation, I've selected the 4-3-2-1, of course, and I have changed and altered a few positions. Namely, the three central midfielders, I've dropped the one into the DM position, and that's to try and, allow him to be the deep-lying playmaker, show for the ball, and help build out from the back. And then, of course, the two central midfielders, I've widened them to like the brink that they can't be, central midfielders anymore. And, of course, that does allow for a bit of width in the more central areas of the field. And then finally, of course, the two centre forwards just in behind the striker. I've also narrowed them, and this does help with the interchangeability, the fluidity in that front line, trying to create confusions, and also the nice link-up play. So therefore, it would be one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, one DM, two central midfielders, two centre-forwards, and then, of course, one striker. So, moving on to the tactics. Now, I've selected wing play because I think it can get the best out of this side, and it allows you to more or less implement Pirlo's style of play. But it kind of does go against the very core element of what Pirlo's looking for. He doesn't like to overload in the wider areas of the field. He likes to try and, stem his attacks more centrally, try and create quite a few bodies and overloads more centrally, and more so allowing for at least one player, or at most one player in those wider channels. And more so with this system, it will be your two fullbacks on the left and the right-hand side. So it kind of goes against it, but it allows you to replicate a very effective Andrea Pirlo set of tactics. Okay, so onto the defense and the defensive style. I have set it to pressing after possession loss. Of course, this is a key element to a successful Andrea Pirlo side. Obviously looking to maintain possession, and then the other key element is looking to win it back as high up and as fast as possible. Looking to try and, demoralize the opposition, make sure that they don't have the ball, make sure that your possession stats are nice and high, and more so the pressing after possession loss does a very effective job. The team width, however, is set to 30, so when you are out of possession, they'll look to try and compact more centrally, forcing the opposition into those wider channels, but at the same time, they tend to win it back, and with that counter-pressing system, as a cohesive unit, they look to, create a very strong and rigid structure that the opposition find it very hard to pass through, so inevitably it does force them either into those wider channels, like we said, or potentially long, and that does tend to play into the hands of the centre-backs, who more naturally will win the ball back and circulate it back into your team's possession. As for the depth, however, I have set it to 75. Now, this does vary. They do play a high line. Of course, it's another key element of what Pirlo's looking for, looking to support the offense with that very high line, but you can also be exposed. And we have seen quite a few times this season Sampdoria get exposed with a long ball over the top. And of course, I think with better quality players in a system like this, it would be absolutely fantastic. But 75 depth, I've set that for the current team, the current players, and I think it more or less reflects a realistic, more natural backline depth. But if you do improve the squad, if you're using these tactics in a career mode and you have better quality centre-backs and, wing backs and full-backs and whatnot, you can definitely push it up nice and high. And of course, that does lend itself into the offensive side of things and helping support the offense. As for the offense, the build-up player I've selected is slow build-up, and of course, the chance creation I've selected is possession, looking to build up very effectively from back to front. Now, this does not mean that, everything is going to be slow. What this does is it allows you to, like I say, for your goalkeeper restarts, have your two centre-backs show for the ball, drop a bit deep, and allow them to get on the ball and look to try and pass the ball forward into the midfield. Of course, you do have some movement between the lines, whether it's one of your number 8s, of course, having that free roaming role, popping up and trying to support the build-up play, or potentially you do have some forward movement, whether it's your three forwards making those runs in behind, looking for the more vertical ball over the top. You can still tend to have moments and, key elements like that in your gameplay. So just because it's set to slow build up and possession, it doesn't mean that there won't be much movement. Of course, the main feature of the possession, chance creation is to have support players in and around the player on the ball, having that extra pass. And again, it does lend itself to what Pirlo's looking for. Of course, consistent support, consistent rotation, having bodies in and around, higher up the field, lower, deeper in your own half at times, but still looking to try and support the man on the ball. Somewhat setting up a diamond, creating those little, triangle passages of play. And like I say, always looking to try and support the man on the ball. I've said that a lot. I do apologize. So moving on to the team width, I've set it to 60, which is the lowest possible, total you can set it to without it being set to custom. And more so, it will allow you to channel a lot of your attack, a lot of your overloads more centrally, like we said. The likes of Pirlo, he doesn't mind having a player out wide, hugging the touchdowns, creating the space. He wants at least one, or he wants at most one player to be in and around, the touchlines, down either flank. Obviously looking for that potential switch of play, that switch ball, cross-field pass. But more so, you want a lot of your players stemming their attacks down the central areas, whether it's the builder play with your midfield, as well as your attacking outlet, which is exactly why I've also narrowed the two centre forwards just in behind the striker. As for the players in the box, I've set it to 7, allowing for, at least 3 to 4 players. And I will also say this, if they are chasing the game, pump that all the way up to 9, overcommit players, create those, overloads in the box. Because essentially, even though there's always going to be at least one player, or at most one player, I keep saying at least, it's at most one player down either flank, they do tend to supply crosses and cutbacks into the box for the players. So again, if you are chasing the game, push it up to 9, overload that attacking area, and maybe, just maybe, you can find yourself in a goal scoring opportunity. Finally, onto the corners and the free kicks. As for always, it is set to 4. So taking a look at the instructions, of course, we've got Stankovic in the goal between the sticks. I've set him to be cautious with the crosses, allowing him to stay on his line and allow the centre-backs to try and deal with a lot of the aerial balls whipped in. And to be honest, it has caught Sampdoria out quite a lot so far this season. But again, it's more or less replicating his role and his style of play. But most importantly, with a system like this, you need a good ball-playing goalkeeper, one that can start the build-up of the attack from back to front, whether it's a long ball in behind or potentially playing it short to the centre-backs or maybe even into the midfield. You want a goalkeeper like that, and Stankovic does fit the mold that Pirlo is looking for. Of course, he is also set to being a sweeper keeper, looking to, venture forward if need be. Obviously, you are playing a high line, so there will be quite a bit of space for the opposition to try and exploit. So you need your goalkeeper to be very proactive and off of his line when required. Into your 2 centre-backs, of course, I've not really changed anything for them, so they are set to their base set of instructions. But onto your fullbacks now. Both will be told to join the attack and overlap. Now, this will allow them to, run the wider channels as much as possible, and they will be the only players in those wider channels more times than not. As for the likes of the defensive positioning, it is set to stick to position. As we'll see here for the right back, he is also set to join attack, overlap, and of course, stick to position. So, moving on into your midfield. Of course, it is supposed to be 3 central midfielders, but I have dropped the middle one into this more defensive midfield position so that he can afford to, show for the ball, drop between the lines, collect the ball off of the back line or the goalkeeper and look to progress it forward. At the same time, when your fullbacks do bomb forward and get nice and high and wide, you would expect a back 3 type formation to essentially form, and more so with the middle central midfielder being set to defensive midfielder, it allows him to do this a bit more effectively. So, in order to replicate his role, I've set him to tight mark, stay back while attacking, especially, like I say, if your fullbacks bomb on forward, he can look to try and take up that middle centre-back type role. The interceptions is set to normal, and then, of course, deep lying playmaker, and finally, cover the centre. Onto your 2 wider midfielders now, Kasami and Vieira. Both have the same roles and instructions. Stay back while attacking. You don't want them getting too far forward. They can break into the box every now and then, especially if you do push players in the box up to 9. They will look to obviously break into that attacking area, but more so they're there to try and rotate play, find the bombing on fullbacks, look to try, pull players out of position, try and reset the offense every now and then. So again, the support on crosses as well stay on the edge of the box. You don't want them, like I say, breaking into the box and creating too much of an overload and overcommitting too many players. The interceptions will be set to normal with their defensive position set to cover the center. Again, this goes hand in hand with them trying to funnel the opposition into those wider channels. Your 3 central midfielders or your 2 central midfielders and your DM are all set to cover the center. They want to create that shield, that barrier in front of that back four. But what I did note was with a Pirlo type system, it's consistent rotation, it's the ability to pop up in the little half spaces, pop up all over the field, whether it's at a deeper rate or in the opponent's half, of course. And I think free roam best suits both what Kasami as well as Vieira tend to do, and whoever you have in those central midfield positions. That's more or less what Pirlo is expecting from the midfield. As you'll see here for the right central midfielder, of course, stay back while attacking, stand on the edge of the box, normal interceptions, cover the center, and then of course, free roam. So moving on to the two centre forwards, of course, Esposito as well as Veer. I think that's how you pronounce his name. But as you'll see here, a lot of their instructions is set to the balanced, style of play. Whether it's balanced with mixed attack, aggressive interceptions, that should more or less help with the counter-pressing system. But at the same time, the defensive support is also set to balance. Allowing for a bit more fluidity, allowing for a bit more of a dynamic style of play, allowing for them to potentially make those runs in behind, like I said, with those more vertical passes, breaking the lines, or potentially they can also look to drift into the wider channels. Now, it's not going to exactly be, hugging the touchlines and having the linker play with your two fullbacks. It's more so just drifting ever so slightly into those slightly wider central areas and pulling players out of position, or trying to get a bit more space between the lines, or maybe, trying to get on the ball and drive at the opposition from a slightly wider angle. Of course, the attacking runs, when the centre forward or the striker is set to mix, it does allow them to be a target man, getting behind type style of play, or maybe even a false nine. And with the false nine approach, it does allow for a lot more movability between the lines. It allows them to drop a bit deeper, get on the ball, interchange passes with the midfield, and more or less look to try and be that extra man every now and then in the midfield, allowing for the likes of Pirlo and Sampdoria to try and dominate the opposition with the possession stats and the possession game. Like I said, the interception set to aggressive, it does allow you to have that very aggressive mentality of winning the ball back nice and high up the field. And then, of course, a basic defensive support can lend itself to both aspects of the game. The offense, they can sometimes hang slightly higher up the field and be a counter-attacking option, of course, or potentially they can look to drop a bit deeper, set up their mid-block, and also look to try and, stifle the opposition's, offensive builder play and whatnot. As you'll see here for the right centre forward, same thing, same instructions, same roles. Finally, onto the centre forward, of course, De Luca. He's set to stay central. Now, you want him more or less being the points, the spearhead of this attack. So you don't really want him drifting wide or having the ability to sway to either the left or the right-hand side. You want him more central, making those runs in behind. He is going to be one of the key figures in, channeling those long balls over the top, or potentially even allowing him to pull players out of position for your two centre forwards just in behind him to try and exploit the space. As for the interceptions, it is set to aggressive. And then finally, just like with the two centre forwards, he's also set to a basic defensive support. So guys, you'll let me know, did I cook with these instructions? I think I did. I absolutely love this formation, these instructions. The players obviously can improve, and that does affect the rating ever so slightly. But I would say, out of 10, it is a solid 8.5. And that is with the team as it is right here, right now. When you've got 65 overalls, with your highest rated player being, 70, 72. And I'm rating it an 8.5. This could go down as, one of my favorite set of tactics that I've created. And that's just because I think I've cooked and I've enjoyed using it in the 10 or so games I've tried it out in. So you guys can let me know down below. Of course, whilst you're there, hit the like button, please. Hit the subscribe button, absolutely. And of course, thank you so much for 5,000 subscribers. You guys have been absolutely goddamn amazing. Anyways, until the next time, if we hit 30 views, nope, I lie. If we hit 30 likes, I will release the back 3 system. Anyways, I'm out.